here to discuss the new AI stack in healthcare is Richard with Highmark Health, Will with Google Cloud, and VentureBeat's own Carl.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my esteemed guests. Appreciate you guys coming out. So this panel is the new AI stack in healthcare. And, AI has been seen as like a huge opportunity for the healthcare space. And I think, we've, even before this session today, that thank you all for joining us and coming to hear us. We were speaking about how, I know there's been many stories we've heard from our sources and just from people in our lives that even physicians today are going to ChatGPT, uploading things and trying to get some feedback for their patients. And a lot of patients, of course, are doing this. And so clearly AI is coming for healthcare from the bottom up. But obviously we want to make sure that those any kind of interaction that we're having with AI and health records is done in a secure, private, safe, and way that respects the standards of the industry. So I'm really happy and excited to talk to you guys about, this space and what you guys have been able to accomplish together, both Google Cloud and Highmark. So tell me a little bit about, the partnership, and let's just start overarching, how you guys came together and what you've been able to accomplish so far.
Yeah, happy to, and really excited to be here. We were just saying before that I truly believe that a lot of the technology that we're talking about here was literally tailor-made for the healthcare industry, and it's just solved so many of the pain points. We started our journey with Google Cloud in late 2020. It was part of a digital transformation strategy that we were going through that really required us to have a digital backbone for that. And so we, kind of selected Google as our primary cloud partner to do a lot of that. We built our data foundation on Google Cloud. We kind of moved our entire ML ops platform there, all of our ML workload, and then lo and behold, generative AI became obviously a huge opportunity, which really positioned us super well to immediately start leveraging a lot of the tooling on GCP. One of the things that it did also immediately make us aware of was that the kind of data strategy we originally had wasn't the data strategy we needed to go forward, because we really focused on a lot of our structured data, and obviously with all the generative AI work, the kind of mass amounts of unstructured information became so important to us, and so it kind of like re-energized a lot of that work as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, one of the things, well, first off, we appreciate the partnership, and it really takes a little bit of foresight, because when you start in a journey like this, it may take 3, 4, 5 years, because you have like application rationalization, you have all the systems work, you want to make sure you're putting stuff into prod that can be trusted. And 4 or 5 years ago, generative AI wasn't really a topic du jour. So in a lot of ways, it's important also to think about, getting started and getting the foundations put in place, because technology, especially top of the stack and ML and AI these days, is changing so quickly. You can be what we found, both with Richard and the team and other customers, is that if you have the foundation and you have your data ready, you can run the experimentation loops and the evals and the things that actually make AI useful at scale within an organization. But it doesn't happen, like we always come, we come to these things and we talk about how great they were, but there was a lot of grinding in those 3 or 4 or 5 years to go from, an idea of how to platform in the cloud to now, some of the things I think we'll talk about in terms of rapid experimentation, new capabilities driven by Gen AI.
And yeah, no, let's definitely get into those, because I do want to talk about a little bit of the examples of where Google Cloud has helped Highmark at point of use, whether that's through AI or just access to data in general. Like, we talk so much about AI at these type of conferences, and obviously to your guys' point, there was this huge foundation that you had to set up before, and that is valuable even without AI. So tell me how that is helping at the point of care at this point, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. Let me give you a couple examples. So just 2 seconds on Highmark Health for those of you that might not know much about our company. So we're an integrated payer and provider. So large Blue Cross Blue Shield branded health system that has about 6 million members, but we also have a 14 hospital health system in Western Pennsylvania, Allegheny Health Network. So let me give you a couple examples across both the payer and the provider space. And I'll say one of the big things, and Will's exactly right, in terms of the foundation, right, is really the integration between our legacy systems and this kind of high-powered AI engine that we had, right? And so the first example of that is, and there's nothing more legacy than a claims platform for a payer, right? These things are, coded in the 80s, COBOL, like no one wants to touch them. They're the beating heart of the company. But we've been able to integrate that with Google Cloud, and we now, for the longest time, we'd have like 90% of our claims were auto-adjudicated, and we couldn't get any better because the suspends were just too complex. But now we have AI algorithms running in the cloud with millisecond resolution to inform suspended claims kind of along the way to essentially enable us to get to a decision quicker, which is fantastic. Another example on the, and a lot of what we're doing is looking for patterns, right? And why I said it was so tailor-made, a huge thing that happens across every healthcare company is people going out and searching various documents and information, trying to get a single view of that and make a decision. Well, there's no need for that searching anymore. We can have AI go out and do that and prep that. And that's happening all over the place, right? And so an example on the provider side is pre-surgical clearance. So is this person ready to have surgery? Well, there may be a nurse that would go out and actually be checking against a number of systems to make sure that it checks against this a particular checklist. Well, again, no need to do any of that anymore. AI can go out and generate all of that and serve up the information, still with a human in the loop, making a recommendation kind of with source verified citations, but that pattern. And then finally, generating some communication. Typically, it's like, yes, you are, no, you aren't. Well, all of that generation is now happening. And the beauty of that is you can tailor that to reading level, to particular language, et cetera. So all of those communications now are kind of getting piped through, again, a horizontal capability that we've created.
And those are going to patients, those
Yeah.
communications directly
that's
and
right.
automatically tailored to their language. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think this is also a whisper of the future, which is these workflows being more less like chat interaction and more multi-agent tasking. Go do something for me, bring it back, give me the option to then like send the email or review the records. And it turns out that when you're trying to build these kind of chat-based interface, real-time interfaces, you get about 110 milliseconds worth of time to deal with before people start opting out or start thinking that your capability isn't all that great. Whereas in these task, kind of retrieval systems, synthesis, multi-step workflows, the economics and the efficacy are much more positive, and it also allows you to kind of cascade over a broader set of tasks than you would necessarily be able to deliver in what somebody might expect in like a chat mobile interface happening in near real time.
Yeah, I would never even think to use a chat interface for some of these types of generations that you're talking about, and certainly not the data retrieval. I mean, you guys mentioned that 14,000 of Highmark's 40,000 employees are now using Gen AI tools. That's, round of applause for that. That's awesome. I don't know if anybody out here is awake and can do this, but that's huge. That's huge uptake, and I think I'm curious, talking about these capabilities that you've already been able to achieve, this pretty incredible stuff. Like, how much of this came from experts, subject matter experts within Highmark, setting this stuff up, from taking the Google tools and the Google Cloud platform and using that, versus how much was Google Cloud, its experts going to Highmark? Like, who was driving kind of the capabilities, or what was that interplay like?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a joint partnership there, right? So it's funny. I think yesterday, for those of you here, there was a question of, I think it's when Stanford was up here, which I totally agree with all that they said. There was a question of, is there a chief AI officer? And I kind of sheepishly raised my hand. And it's not because we're there to essentially tell everyone how to do this. We're there to teach everyone how to use these tools. And our AI Center of Excellence is actually run by a change management expert. That's who sits in that seat. Because for us, this is mostly about how do we educate, how do we onboard people to these platforms. On the back end, we have an AI platforms team that is talking every single day to our Google Cloud counterparts, our architects, our engineers that are supporting us on this, to then take the Google tools, implement them kind of safely and securely in our environment, and then deploy them, and constantly then be analyzing usage to identify those horizontals. So yes, we have 14,000 employees that are actively using the chat interface. We can then mine how they're using it and find relevant examples to bring proactively to other areas, to say, oh, wow, look at this amazing contract comparison that this area is doing. Let's build that into our structured prompt library and go out to other areas that deal with contracts and show them, not kind of theoretically, but in like actual practice, how this gets used. And that's been one of the most amazing things, is just the hands-on keyboards kind of training, and the amount of adoption that we're seeing when you bring relevant things to folks that make their job easier and take away some of that toil.
Yeah, and for us, it's been fantastic because, one, we learn about the use cases that are emerging within the organization, because not all of them have been exposed yet broadly. Yeah, 14,000 people on the system and using, but you also have some stuff you're cooking in the back that you're getting ready to introduce. And so we can also take a look at what's in our roadmap and make sure that it either matches, or we can kind of shift the roadmap a little bit to match capabilities that you need. And one of the areas in particular that we've gained a lot of insight from you on is how to think about surfacing different types of models for different types of use cases as well. So for example, like Gemini 2.5 Pro is really great for long-running tasks and very complex research tasks, for example. But Flash is more of an immediate, give me answers, give me something that is more of a real-time use case. And the way that we can apply these models to the right use case and also develop them and figure out what you need next, it's been a real benefit for us as a technology provider.
Yeah, I love that we have brought this conversation about the different models up organically, and curious even. I would imagine that like things like the translation and linguistic customization for patients and anybody who's interfacing, that's probably Flash, or no? What I mean, you guys tell me what would be driving that kind of like translating a communication into a different language. Is that I guess both could do it, but I'm just curious if like that's a case where a small model would
yeah,
help.
language translation is usually much better handled by kind of near real time, and these have been embedded capabilities of these models for a really long time, is multilingual. You also might get into even more, not necessarily a Gen AI model, but you can get into very task-specific model, deterministic models, and language translation, like Google Translate, for example, which has been around for a really long time. You can use a core out of that to do language translation tasks. If that's your own, you can even, the models now almost serve as like routers too. This is like one of the emergent patterns also is like, you may give it to like a Gemini interface, and Gemini is actually going out and searching for which model can fulfill the task the best, and it can cascade over a number of task-specific models within its architecture.
And that's all just native in the Google Cloud Platform already, or
yeah, these are just native model capabilities,
yeah.
And this is also, I think, a future design pattern, which is these large foundational models, and why I'm always encouraging our customers to really think first, what can you get from the foundational model before building out the scaffolding, because more and more of that scaffolding is being built inside of the model, and routing and kind of best expert and these other functions are actually part and parcel of foundational models now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the foundational principles we operate under is we're really trying to push all of these to the kind of simplest and kind of least technical solution possible, right? So if we try to have the use case be solved through prompting if we can, then we might say, hey, let's do some few shot prompting if we can, and if we must, we'll go to fine tuning a model. But we're really trying to push that, because that allows us to have the most surface area and impact possible. And then some of those models may be fine-tuned ones that we have trained on our brand voice, or others may be non-Google models that we access safely and securely through the model garden. But it really gives us a platform that we can start to orchestrate all of these to kind of fulfill the ultimate tasks that we're shooting for.
And I think that's also just to hammer a point is that the platform engineering that you've done and the way you think about abstracting like an individual model and thinking about what is the task that you have to perform and what models might perform best under those tasks. I would really encourage folks that are adopting now AI at scale is, take a look at that platform engineering set of tasks, and don't think about starting with a model. Think about fulfilling a task, and that will, just that change in mindset might actually lead you to, we've done like cook-offs between multiple models from multiple vendors, to solve a problem within, real use cases for real customers like yourself. So.
And yeah, no, this is a great point, and I do want to touch upon this in the short time we have left. Is this idea of like enterprises thinking that they might have to like train their own foundation model, or again in this case, how much can I get out of the basic model without fine tuning it? Like understanding those kind of trade-offs or calculations. Like it sounds like you guys are mainly using the core models and the core capabilities. You fine tune in some cases. You're not doing any training your own models from the ground up, right? And like this is something we talked about before. Why not?
Yeah, stay away. Listen, I know this may sound self-serving, but stay away. At least on the foundational model side. And the reason is because it's software. And if you really want to get into spending, many, many billions in CapEx and many, many billions in cost of goods sold for your go-to-market team to actually make use of all the assets that you just invested in, because your CEO and CFO are demanding that you get, maximum return for this investment you just made of creating foundational models and serving them out. If that's your business model, great. But it's a tough hill. What I would encourage you to think about is our classes of models. So, we talked about like real time versus, deep research. Think about classes of models in terms of task specific, domain specific versus large foundational models. And even thinking about abstraction. The next layer of abstraction is agentic. And when you start thinking about like your documents as code or your business process as code, it actually like unleashes an architectural principle for you to leverage your intellectual property, your business processes in the way that's best for you, and then just call models and orchestrate with models rather than getting into the cycle of like starting with a model and building and then trying to work your way back to your intellectual property and your knowledge in a business.
And yeah, I mean, speaking of this, like, a great connector to agents and, a huge theme at this conference. I mean, we talked about how you shouldn't even really be thinking about like necessarily like specifically what model or I want to use a model or I want to fine tune and train a model. You just think about the work that needs to be done, right? And I think that's super helpful and a really clear piece of guidance that everybody can take, no matter what industry they're in. So where do agents come into play for the partnership with you guys, and when do they make sense? I guess keeping that in mind that we're trying to accomplish some specific tasks, like when should we be tapping an agent or creating an agent to do those?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, for at least us, we're very early days on the agentic side. We found that we can do a lot with, LLM workflows, with kind of incorporating that. We are starting to experiment with kind of single-use agents, where appropriate. We're excited about it. I think one of the biggest challenges back to that platform thinking is it's really about how can we start to then curate a set of tools that those agents could actually be calling to take action that makes them meaningful, right? Because it's easy, like deep research, amazing, and having research kind of within our own data, amazing. But, eventually we need to start taking action in our actual internal systems. And I don't want 1,000 different connectors, right? I would like one connector per. And so kind of that platform thinking, a little bit of the, go slow to go fast type thinking, which, is a little frustrating for some folks, but I do think ultimately is a better answer.
Yeah, and I'm the standardization of like the agentic stack is happening right now. So for example, like just over the past week, we put the agent-to-agent protocol into the Linux Foundation. All the hyperscalers are joining with us on this. The system of records, large system of record providers like ServiceNow are in there with us. And so to exactly your point, like the platform engineering usually starts around like standards and standardization. It starts with protocols, starts with interoperability, starts with identity. So all of these pieces, the tech companies are working on this, and the systems of record are working on, kind of standardizing. So you have less to worry about in like, interoperability and, security and things like that. And it's more like you can say, okay, well, we have some unstructured data over here that we haven't yet really been able to utilize really well. How can we surface that through, an interface or a tool or a wrapper or an API or something, so that you're focused at the point of your data rather than in the plumbing which we feel a deep responsibility to.
Yeah, you guys are the pipe layers, I guess, there in that analogy. But no,
Really
this is
big
great.
pipes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you're going to stick around later for a little bit so people can ask questions. We're going to be yanked off the stage here with a cane soon, so we got to say goodbye. But hopefully you can say, hopefully people can come find you, ask questions if they have more. And thank you again for joining us. Really helpful to share your insights.
Thanks all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.